Hello and welcome to Better West Services. We're here in Fife with Sandy Anderson from Fife Council. It's Tim and Louise and the Better West Services podcast. So, Sandy, we usually start these things with a bit of a discussion of the background of our guest and how they came to be in the industry. It's usually by accident, but tell us your story. How do you come to be in waste management?
Okay, so 22 years ago I was living and working in Aberdeen, and an opportunity came up to move back to Fife because I was quite keen at the time to move back to Fife because that's where I was from. I saw an opportunity came up with Fife Council. It was only a 6-month seasonal post, but with my background, because I'd studied environmental science at university, I thought if I could get in the door, then it might be an opportunity that I could use that in the future. So I took the chance, left a full-time job in Aberdeen to come down to a part-time job here, or a seasonal job, and 22 years later I'm still here.
So is that on the bins?
Initially, to start with, I was taken on on the street cleaning side. So I worked on that for a few years and then sort of gravitated more towards the waste side, started working as a waste collector. Then I got my HGV licence through the council, so I became a sort of charge hand driver as well. Then I had been in the job maybe 10, 11 years, started taking more of an interest in working on the management side, and an opportunity came up to become an officer, which I took. And then went from officer to coordinator to team manager, and then about 5.5 years ago became the service manager for the team. And then once I'd been the service manager for around a year, just for domestic waste, I also took on street cleansing as well, which put my team up to around about 400, and in the summer probably about 440 employees once we had in our seasonal workers.
Wow, that is a huge amount of responsibility.
Well, it is. It's a big workforce. It was quite a big workforce anyway, just dealing with domestic waste. But our street cleaning team used to kind of work alongside grounds maintenance, and we felt there was more of a sort of synergy working alongside domestic waste. That's how things had been in the past. So we decided that team got split up, and I took them on. And it's a big responsibility, but it's one that I thoroughly enjoy.
It sounds like it.
So I met you back at the Awards for Excellence in sort of spring of 2024, where you won an award for an initiative you'd undertaken for mental health and wellbeing on your crew, and that's actually a big part of what we want to talk about today is driver and crew wellbeing and mental health. Give us a bit of background into how you came to be interested in that and and the work you've done to promote it.
So obviously back in sort of March 2020, we all went under COVID restrictions, and that put a lot of pressure on everybody right across the board, not just obviously my team. Sadly, January 2021, someone in my team took their own life, and it gave everyone in the team a massive shock dealing with that, because it's not something you'd expect to come across. But once we kind of looked more into it, perhaps with the age sort of demographic of our team, and it being one of the leading causes of kind of death amongst men of a certain age, then perhaps not such a surprise. But it shook us all, and it made everyone a bit more aware. But then by the end of 2021, we'd actually lost 3 members of the team. So another 2 members of the team had taken their life, and that really galvanised us. I was like, as a manager of a big team, I thought I can't just sit and do nothing. We absolutely have to start taking action. And so we started moving forward, started trying to raise awareness. There was a course came up for managers, so that all the frontline managers could become more experienced in dealing with this. And we just, all the time, I just kept thinking, what more can we do? By accident, came across a news article, and it was to do with a football team who had brought out a third kit, a limited edition third kit, and had a little box on the bottom which had mental health kind of awareness numbers on it. NHS Mental Health Hub, Samaritans, Shout and Andy's Man Club. And I only caught the last kind of 10-15 seconds of the article, so I googled it the next day and thought, actually this is, because the strip they brought out was actually kind of like yellow, so it looked almost like a high-vis workwear top, and I thought, right, I think this is something we can adapt here. So I got in touch with Lion Safety, who sort of produced our high-vis polo shirts at the time, and we kind of took the idea, took the concept, and we transferred it onto this polo shirt, and we did an initial run of kind of 300 so that everyone in the team could get a could get this. And it was just, the idea was, for anyone that was struggling, you would always have these numbers on you because it was on the bottom corner of the polo. You know, someone had said to me, why not put it on the back in like huge writing? But it's like, no, we're not there to advertise this. We're actually, it's because it's PPE, it's for that person. So you've always got these little numbers to hand, and they're always there for you. And we got good backing from it. We got the trade unions involved, and one of the trade unions paid a good chunk of the money towards the initial run of polo shirts. And at that point, we started getting working a bit closer with Andy's Man Club as well, because they were one of the charities that were being advertised. So we did some other work with them, and put some vinyls on the side of the trucks that was also like advertising the charity. When they rolled out, it was the 11th of May. By this point, it was the 11th of May 23 when we rolled that out. And within 24 hours, someone got in touch with Andy's Man Club, having seen it on the side of the lorry.
Wow.
Because it was, obviously, you're putting these on the side of vehicles which are up and down every street in Fife. So that kind of showed the power of kind of advertising like that.
You've only need to touch one person, don't you, when it's something this powerful to know that it's the right decision.
I've always said that all along. It's like all the stuff we do, all the interventions we make, designing these polo shirts, getting them rolled out. If all the action I take only helps one person, then it's absolutely worth doing, because you can't put a value on one life.
Yeah.
So I've been hoping that it helps a lot of people, but supposing it helps one person, then it's absolutely worth it.
It's amazing. We're going to see the trucks later, I think, aren't we?
We are, yeah.
A part of this journey film.
Yeah.
I think it looks amazing. I looked it up last night with another little video I saw that you did. Getting quite famous now.
That was an initiative we started last year. I was having a chat with Kenny Armour, who's the local lead for Andy's Man Club, and he was showing me some of the things that they've done with Bookers, and it was I think it was ScotRail, one of the Scottish trains actually had the whole front of the train with a vinyl around it for Andy's Man Club. So I knew we were due some new vehicles in, so I got in touch with Dennis Eagle, who make them, and says, look, we want to try this. Is this something you can do for us? So what they had said was, instead of us putting the vinyls on for you, we'll donate money towards it, and you can get a local sign company to do it.
Wow.
So they paid for that, and then when I got in touch with the trade unions, the local trade unions, GMB, Unite and Unison, have actually paid for another 4. So we've now got 7 vehicles with the cabs completely wrapped with Andy's Man Club advertising the charity. And just as an example, we have one driver who he had mental health issues, and he had been to some of the meetings, and he was one of the first drivers who actually got to take it out. So he was absolutely over the moon, knowing that this had helped him.
Gave me goosebumps.
And so because he was so happy that he was the one that took it out, so he could sort of drive this truck round and show everyone that advertising the charity, and it was a really massive thing for him as well. So he was so happy with that.
Is the charity countrywide, or is it a local?
No, it's a UK charity, and it's absolutely they're trying to start new meetings all over Britain anytime. It's just a case of getting them set up.
They're creating a lot very rapidly, aren't
they?
They
are.
There's a lot of them fairly recently. Yeah,
they're growing all the time.
So it's a group where you can just go along to and talk, basically.
So it's Monday nights.
Yeah.
So it's every Monday apart from bank holidays, isn't it? And I think it's uniformly 7:00 on a Monday in your local area. You just walk in, and someone will make you a cup of tea, and then there's a bit of a format to them. We know because we've had the local guys have come in, and it's surprising. The raw statistics about male suicide are absolutely mind blowing, and you quickly realise that everybody knows somebody. So my wife's brother took his own life at a young age. We, about the same time as you did, we had lost one of our team. And I think what always comes out of these things is that you realise that so many people are struggling, and they're so very, very good at masking it, and that it comes out of the blue, but in retrospect you look back and think maybe it wasn't out of the blue. So getting people to be able to talk about it and even just be aware of it. So we've got these wristbands.
Thank you very much.
You're putting it on the trucks. You're actually making it a normal thing to discuss and be aware of. And I think that's we talk about being aware of things. Awareness is one of those things that gets bandied around. But I think in this space, being aware of it.
I had no idea. Yeah, I had no idea the numbers. And
the biggest killer of men
Yeah.
under 50.
I had no idea. And I know people who have, unfortunately, as well. And I know that the age is getting lower from the research I've done recently, that is going down as young as 12.
Yeah. Over 4,000 people a year.
I think in Scotland it's about roughly, on average, 2 people every single day who take their own life. But one of the good things, I was speaking to someone just on Thursday last week who is currently often going through kind of a bit of a mental health crisis. And he said he'd been to Andy's Man Club meetings. But what he said was the first couple of meetings he actually didn't say anything. But it was just being in that space. But once he got to the third meeting, he actually had that confidence to open up and actually start speaking to everyone. Because at the meetings, there's absolutely no judgment. If you don't want to speak, if you want to just sit and listen, then you can. But obviously, it's encouraging people to open up. But with this person, it was by the time they got to the third meeting, they actually felt like they could then open up and speak to the group. So I think that's really important.
And people around you that know that you're there for that reason must be a comfort in itself. Anyway, I mean, it's so difficult for me because I guess women generally do open up and more than men, and I think that's something that's quite archaic with boys. You know, boys don't cry, boys don't do this, boys don't do that, and I'm hoping that actually does change as we move forward. But the numbers don't suggest that is the case. I don't know what the stats are for women, if I'm honest, but it's definitely not as high as men. So to have that space is really, really important, because I know that friends of mine male friends of mine aren't as open with their emotions and feelings when they're struggling. It seems a lot harder for them.
I was going to say, from the research I've done, because I speak about it quite a lot at different conferences, I think the number of men compared to women is 3 times higher. The instances of suicide. So, and it's also, there's all sorts of things linked to kind of deprivation as well. In the most deprived areas, there's a certain percentage are more likely to happen than in the 10% least deprived areas. So there's all sorts of links to it.
Lots of different
nuances with it.
Yeah.
I think for every person who does take their own life, there's multiple people who are just really struggling with all the quality of life. So the numbers are even bigger. There's definitely a lot needs to be done to, improve life for men in that age group. And I think, as Sandy said, you employ primarily people in that demographic.
Yeah, we've got. I've got, like I said, in the height of summer, it's probably 440 employees. The average age is just a shade below 49. But the biggest demographic is kind of 50 to 55, and it falls right in the kind of main group.
I'm guessing it's a male-dominated industry.
Think probably 99% of my workforce is male,
and so that's going to be across all councils, isn't it? I would assume.
Yeah, it's pretty similar everywhere, and again, we're generalising, but it's a physical job that it's not it's not a job where people are open and emotional. It draws in people who do physical work. The traditional bloke who keeps himself to himself and gets on with his job, and that's the demographic. So it's they're very difficult people to reach by conventional means, because they don't come into the office. They're just out there in small teams working. So
quite isolated.
But what I would notice as well is, we've actually now. From 2021 to now, we've lost 5 members of the team to suicide. Attending all the funerals, what you see is every one of them had a large support network around them. So they all had, or most of them had partners, children, big families, and you saw the amount of people, the amount of support they had at the funerals, but they weren't able to kind of reach out and get that help that they needed, or speak to someone.
It's never about what's around them, is it? It's about what's going on in yourself, and it's not normally rational or concise. It's something you're in a different place, and that must be awful. And to then be able to then go somewhere and open up, that would be a challenge in itself to accept that help. But I think having it readily available on your shirt or on the side of a vehicle in that instant, because it's normally in that instant it's overwhelming, I'd imagine, and then hopefully they'll take steps to seek help or advice or counsel.
I think the key as well is all the numbers that we advertise, they're all self-referral. So in the past, maybe you'd have to come to your boss to say, can you refer me to to one of the kind of self-help or one of the help groups that were available through the council. Whereas now we've got all these that are actually so you don't have to come in, when you don't have to speak to your supervisor and ask for help. You can do, the numbers are there, you can just call yourself, you don't have to, have anyone.
Do you think that's shifted post-COVID, where people are becoming a little bit more open about mental health, so it's not quite such a taboo subject, not such a...
I think nationwide you see it. There is more people talking about it. These groups are opening up for Andy's Man Club, and it's featured on fairly high-profile television programmes and stuff like that. And it does, the more you can get it out, the better. But I think you'll still always have that little bit of issues with men genuinely opening up and actually wanting to speak.
It's from talking to the guys down here, as they were saying that they get a lot of people go to clubs that are actually not all that near where the guy lives. So people will travel some distance just to not be sat with their next door neighbour or somebody that they might know. So I think there still is that. It's a very private thing. Yeah. But if that's what it takes, it doesn't matter, does it? If that's available. So I think. We just from the bit of sort of chat we've had and the sort of social media stuff that's been going around, we're definitely seeing other authorities wanting to emulate what you're doing. Quite a few said to me, Andy Utterly, they really want to do the sort of things you're doing and keep that awareness going, because I think they see all the same issues. There's nothing you've done is particularly. There's no rocket science here, is there?
Absolutely
it's all
not.
Reproducible.
The polo shirts we did are all just standard high-vis polo shirts with a very simple iron-on badge or stitch-on badge. But it's only pennies to kind of replicate that. The vinyls we did on the front of the vehicles were around about £1,000 a vehicle. But again, we'd funding from the supplier, the vehicle supplier, as well as the trade unions. But because it's also really, really worth any local authority tapping into their local trade unions, because they're always willing to help with things like that, because it's all for the benefit of your employees and also the benefit of the wider authority area. And absolutely everything's easy to replicate that we've done. And I would, I've spoken the length and breadth of Britain at different various conferences. I think I've been as far south as South Wales, and I've spoken at a conference in London, as well as, I think as furthest north I was Aviemore. And I don't mind taking time out of my life, if you like. I don't particularly like being away overnight, because I'll have to leave the kids behind and stuff like that. But it's worth it if I have to be away for a day or two, because I can go and speak at a conference and try and encourage other people, so that maybe they've had similar issues, or maybe might stop them having to go through the pain of what we did of losing 5 members of the team. So if I can help anyone, then I'm willing to do that. And we've had conversations with other Scottish councils who've come to us, and particularly Stirling just recently are wanting to replicate what we've done as well. So I'm always happy to work with anyone to share what we've done and to help them if they want to follow the same path.
Do you get any sort of external guidance or within the industry? I mean, we've done quite a lot of work on physical safety, with our partnerships and the sort of technology that's on the truck. But ultimately, if there's an accident, then HSE will come in and there's an adjudication on whether your working practice was good. Yeah. Is there anything like that for mental health that's actually sort of holding you to any sort of standard?
Not really, but at the same time, we all work under the Health and Safety at Work Act 1974, and I think what a lot of people fail to realise is that mental health and stress actually comes under that. When you have to provide a safe place for your employees to work in, and everyone does risk assessments, but do you consider mental health and stress when you're carrying out risk assessments? Because you can actually do separate ones. And it's only in the last 12 months that we've finished that for my service, because it's possibly something that has been overlooked in the past. So it's looking at every task that we carry out, and then not just looking at the physical risks attached with it, but looking at the mental health and the stress that's attached to it as well. So carrying out a completely separate risk assessment for that. So it's something that's it's probably something that does get overlooked, but it's something that we actually must comply with under that law. That's
a really interesting point, actually. Everyone should have that.
I suppose it's quite difficult to, if there's a physical injury at the back of a truck, you can draw a very straight line between the machinery and the outcome. If someone has mental health crisis or ultimately takes their own life, you it's very difficult to sort of say that was because of that. So the accountability is probably more difficult to establish and therefore more difficult to legislate against. But we definitely. I know. I was in a presentation a while ago with HSE, and the information there was that the HSE is going to move more towards the health aspect away from safety, and they will look at things like particulates and noise, noise injuries and that sort of stuff. And again, it's very difficult to actually draw a straight line between the outcome and the cause, whereas with a physical accident, you can.
However, if you've got, for instance, you've got a bin lorry, you've got 2 men working at the back. Sorry, I shouldn't say 2 men necessarily.
2 operatives, yeah.
2 operatives working at the back, and apologise. But you're working in stressful conditions. You're working in live traffic. You've no idea who's coming past you. I've got some videos because our lorries have got 360-degree footage. So we've got some videos of kind of like near misses and things like that, where folk who won't wait and they speed past, or you get folk who are openly abusive to the employees working at the back. So there's stress, and there's, it can affect people's mental health if you're abused in the street.
Oh yeah.
I had no idea of any of this. Like, I must live underneath a rock or something, because every time I see anything, I'm so shocked. And I saw footage of people going up the pathway because they couldn't wait for the truck, just on the pavement, and there's like a mum with a pram coming towards them. Yeah. This can't happen in real life. This can't happen.
Every day.
Happens every day.
But I don't think that message is out there. Surely if that's commonly known, people surely must all think like me and go, that can't happen, or maybe put them off doing it because they think that's what's safe.
But we're up and down every single street in Fife once a week for a minute while we're up in your street at that time. But people will still get impatient sitting behind because they're held up for 30 seconds, and they'll sit and peep their horn and rev their engine because they're being held up. And it's absolutely nothing in the. I've worked at the back of the lorry, and there was an elderly woman one day who actually crashed her car trying to squeeze past, and she was on her way to like a coffee morning, and couldn't wait for 30 seconds for us to just get past and out the way.
Everyone's in such a hurry.
She wiped out the side of her car, squeezing past us in another parked car, and it's just. But people have to realise. I think most folk are actually okay. They realise that the refuse lorry is only there for one day a week, but some folk are always in a hurry. And
I'm a vigilante. When I'm behind a bin truck, I put my car right in the middle of the road.
I can imagine you doing this.
20 yards back from the truck, and I just hold all the traffic, so they're all swearing and pipping at me, and I'm giving the bin guys a pass for half a minute.
Amazing. But when there was someone who was telling me I heard it at the comms conference, and one of the councils was doing a talk, and they were saying that the verbal abuse that the crew got was so fierce that it was really upsetting for the crew. They were chased down a street by some members of the public. Again, I've never heard of this before. Like, it's not something.
There's a recent incident in Stoke. In fact, the legal case has just concluded on it, I believe, where the bin crew were chased with weapons.
What had they done that was so bad that they need to be chased?
I think they'd refused to collect the guy's bin.
Brilliant.
Because it was
that
contaminated.
Sounds like a perfectly acceptable reason.
Yeah. But we do see this on the cameras all the time. So the 2 things that we tend to be looking for when we're doing the audits, because we do thousands of vehicles, remote audits using the cameras, as Sandy was saying. And the 2 things you see are the public, which you can't really control very much. They usually got to live with that, but report it where you can. But the other thing that we see is again split-second stuff where people put their hand in a bin, or they stand in the crush zone, operating a machine that would be condemned if it was in a factory. It's a very dangerous machine that will crush you without any guards running automatically. You couldn't have that in a factory, but it's perfectly fine in the rain outside of a dual carriageway, because there's no other way of doing it. But again, we can see what crews are doing. We can assist and educate and put better systems of work in place. The stress and the mental health stuff is much harder to see and much harder to design out of waste collection, because it's it's invisible.
Well, if they're being given abuse by residents, surely that would lead to them making different choices that they wouldn't normally make if you're under
Yeah.
that level of pressure.
Stress, yeah.
That's what, I mean, Tim's absolutely right about the 360-degree cameras that we have. Ours are actually, we can live stream them as well, but they're not there to spy on the crew or, they're actually more there for the crew's own protection and safety.
Yeah.
And we've downloaded a lot of footage which shows us where people have perhaps complained, but it's actually been the person complaining that's been in the wrong. Particularly with footage where people claim we've hit their car as we've been driving past, and you just download the footage and there's big gaps between the car. You can see it. I've got one clip where there's somebody who comes out to complain that we haven't put their bin back in the right place, and then starts attacking the crew with their white stick.
Wow. I mean, you shouldn't laugh.
Equally what Tim said about the dangerous, like using the lifting gear, I've got one clip and we use it for our new starts to show them. Somebody just gets too close and it catches their jacket and they actually get lifted off the ground. Luckily they managed to unhook themselves, or they'd been straight in the back of the truck.
Yeah, that's terrifying.
It is terrifying, but when you capture all these things, you can use them as learning aids.
Yeah.
And it's most of the things I've seen, and there was a particularly well-known fatality in 23. A guy got lifted into the back of the hopper, and again, anecdotally, it's guys our age. It's not the young guys doing this, it's the guys who've been doing it for many years who've just got that automatic muscle memory of this is how I do it. Oh, the bins have got jammed, I'll just give it a wobble or whatever. It's that split second stuff, and it's really difficult to design that out of the operation, but the only way to do it is to know about it and then to tackle it. And the 360-degree cameras are great for that.
Which terrifies me slightly, because I'm assuming that not everyone has these 360 cameras. So what you're capturing probably happens everywhere else, and they don't see all these near misses. Are they making the right choices based on?
I think having ours are linked to our telematics, so we can just go in and if anything happens, we can download it straight away. Going back maybe 7 or 8 years, you'd have to bring the truck in, take the hard drive out, interrogate the hard drive, try and find it, whereas we've now got a system that's really easy to use, which massively helps.
But then you can train and educate, like you said, that's part of your training for new members of staff. And
also discipline. I think you have to come to a point where you say, okay, we've seen this behaviour, it's dangerous, so you've given the opportunity. But ultimately, if people continue to work in an unsafe way, you have to wave them goodbye, because you can't just, because if you don't, then you're condoning it. Those are the options. You're either going to act against it, or you're tacitly saying that it's okay. And I was in a council the other day, and they had just done that, and the lady got some grief for that from other members of staff, and she said, I'd rather tell him he's got to go home than tell his mum he's not coming home, because those are the choices.
Yeah. I mean, we do have, as well as backing up the cameras, our supervisors will go out every single day and pick a vehicle at random and do a safety check. And we have a check sheet to make sure that the crew are working safely, but also simple things like the first aid kit's in place, and everything about the vehicles is working safely as well. So we do that's a kind of belt and braces, if you like. So we've got the 360-degree cameras, and we can do everything remotely, but we also go out and physically see the guys working as well. So that's.
But what that's doing is, and it's coming back to the mental health thing as well. It's promoting a conversation about safety or health. So the fact that you're doing that audit, or you're having that conversation about have you got your first aid kit, it's just constantly reminding people that this is important. It's normal. We can talk about it, and it just makes it part of the everyday thing. It's not just how many bins have you emptied. It's have you emptied the bins? Did you do it safely?
And I think
are you well?
I think as well, with everything we've done, like focusing on the mental health, as well as these kind of safety checks and making sure everyone's working safely, it's all about making it a more attractive place to work and being able to retain staff, because it's a terrible industry for not being able to keep staff, particularly drivers as well, because there's quite a high turnover of staff. So I think if you can show yourself to be a responsible employer and you look after your employees, then you've more chance of keeping them, and also more chance of attracting new members of staff to come in and work for you.
That's a big challenge, isn't it? you say your average age is 49, which is probably a little bit lower than some of the councils I've spoken to. But yeah, attracting young staff into the waste industry, it's not an aspirational industry, or historically hasn't been.
That was part of why. I mean, last year we went through a big managing change. I completely changed all the shift patterns and the way that we worked. Part of it was for mental health, and part of it was for then trying to get employees as well. Because previously, in 2012, we were put on a shift system that was day shift, back shift. So the day shift would work at 6 o'clock in the morning till 1:30. Back shift would work from 1:30 till 9 o'clock. And it was brought in solely to save money. We, like, half the fleet got disposed of. So the vehicles were double shifted every day. At no point did they take into consideration what the employees would think if they were having to be up at 4:30 in the morning one week and then not start until 1:30 the following week. So you never get in a decent sleep pattern. It's a kind of constant stress on you. I was still towards the end of me being on the front line, but I did work under those shifts. I absolutely hated it, and we lost a lot of employees because they just didn't want to work it. So back in 2021, we took it back to me and says, right, if I was to think as an employee, what shift pattern would I like? How could I change this to make things better? So I looked at all the different options, talked to the trade unions, and engaged with the staff. And what I proposed was a 4-day working week, working 9-hour shifts, but with a rolling day off. So all of our employees went on to that last October. So they still work the same 36 hours a week. But for example, week 1, if you're off Monday, week 2, you're off Tuesday. So by week 5, you're off Friday. And then week 6, you're off the Monday again. So you have every 5 weeks, you have this kind of 4-day long weekend. We've still got all the work done. We've still got all the routes covered. We had to buy in new vehicles. But as it turns out, with the way that it's designed, the way the shifts are, the way we'll actually, within 7 years, we'll have paid back those vehicles. So we're still saving a bit of money, but it's given the employees a much better work-life balance. Nobody has to work till 9 o'clock at night. It's a safer environment because in the winter, nobody's having to work long hours in the dark. But by 4:30 every day, everyone's finished and away home. So if you've got a family, you'll be home every night and you can sit and have your evening meal with your family, rather than being out on a lorry till 9 o'clock and getting home at maybe 9:30, 10 o'clock that I used to have to do.
How do you manage the seasonality? When you've got that steady pattern, but it's the waste industry is not a steady demand, is it? So you've got the summer, and
we will still have a cohort of seasonal workers coming in who will fit into the shifts.
So you run the same pattern.
Yeah, so it'll be the same pattern. They'll cover it the same way. Because it does it. In the winter we drop our compost to 4 weekly. So that gives us a bit of slack in the winter as well. Yeah. But the whole idea was the old shifts, as well as being unsuitable for, to me, they didn't really give you a very good work-life balance, but also they were at their absolute limit. There was absolutely no redundancy left because Fife has expanded probably by 10,000-12,000 properties since it came in. And it was at that stage where we were really creaking at the seams, so we had to do something different as well. So there's a little bit of redundancy built in, because I think if you build any system, you've got to have that little bit of redundancy that if things go wrong, if you have breakdowns, you've got to have a little bit of flexibility that people can come in and help.
And that's the problem with the double shifting, isn't it? You get fewer vehicles, but they don't last as long because it's not age that kills the vehicles. It's the operating life. They're still in the same amount of hours, so they just die younger. Yeah. So I think having that shift pattern gives you that flexibility because the vehicles are available more.
So I mean, we're only 4 months in, so I think once we get a full year out of it, and I'm hoping to see, hopefully, like the number of kind of mental health and stress related absences goes down. What I want to make sure though is that things like musculoskeletal injuries don't go up because they work on a slightly longer day. Yeah. And it is something new for us. So I think it's important that we look at the data and we'll see how it changes things.
What's the general feedback so far from the team?
The general feedback is it's a really popular shift system. The thing is as well, if you've got a spike of absences, every day you've got 20% of your workforce sitting at home. So if anyone would like a bit of overtime, you can actually draw the people in.
Oh yeah, of course.
Because you can get them to come in and do an extra day and a little bit of extra money for them as well. Whereas before, working day shift, back shift, your whole workforce was committed all day, so you didn't have that that kind of backup
That'd
built
be really interesting statistics to see if the figures
in. Yeah.
of absence.
Well, the thing is, with the work we've done with mental health, back in sort of 21, 22, we were sitting at around about 7 working days lost per full-time employee per year.
Okay.
That currently is down to about 3.5. So,
That's
with
amazing.
actions we've taken, we like to think it's made a big difference. So, let's just see if we can then keep that figure coming down. Hopefully, this new shift pattern and everyone just being that little bit happier at their work might just make another difference.
I think the opportunity for overtime is potentially quite good at bringing in the younger workforce as well, because that demographic wants to earn more money, wants the flexibility to do that. So if you've got a shift pattern that leaves room for overtime for people who want it, that's probably pretty popular with the younger crews. As
well, I mean, when you're trying to attract drivers, there's a big market out there for HGV drivers. They can go to sort of Stobart's or one of the other big haulage companies and earn quite good, big money, if you like, that you're not going to earn with us. But what you get with the local authority is you've got your steady, you've got 36 hours, you know exactly what shift you're going to work, you'll be home at night at the same time. But then if we've got this little opportunity for a little extra overtime as well, then it just gives them that little incentive.
And then you said when we were off air about the fact that you are really promoting trying to have that career path as well as part of the council. And I think that would be my younger self. I would have loved that opportunity. But I have to say, I never really considered waste. And even when I started working at Permissive, I didn't see it as waste, but now I'm straight in there now. But I think getting that knowledge out there to the younger generation, colleges, schools, that this is a career path. It's not just, you'll start somewhere, but you can see where you're going and learning different skills, because there's so many different parts of working at a council. It's not just waste, it's all environmental, HR, it's so many different sides of it.
Absolutely. I think it's really important. I think within my team, all of the supervisors and officers currently have come from within the team, who've been out, worked on the front line, done the job. But we absolutely promote all the sort of training that you can do within the council. There's loads of courses that can help to get your sort of first foot on the management kind of door, if you like. Same sort of path that I followed. And we promote and support them as much as possible. I actually, just last year, created a coordinator's role within the team, and that the person in that job just focuses on the kind of recruitment, training, and helping people in their pathway through the council. And so I think it's really important. I don't want people to just come in and feel that they're in a kind of a waste collector job or a street cleaner job, and that's all they can ever be. There will be opportunities. What we've just started doing in the last couple of years as well, because it's quite a tough job to attract LGV drivers. When we have seasonal workers in, we come at the end of the summer, if there are any driver vacancies, we extend the seasonal contracts, but we offer them driver training. So effectively take them on as trainee HGV drivers. So we pay for the council pays for the HGV course, and if they attend, they go through it all, pass, then they're guaranteed a job at the end of it, because they're actually sitting covering a driver vacancy.
That's an amazing opportunity.
Yeah, so we've gotten 7 or 8 in that over the last 2 summers, and it was all young folk kind of in their early 20s, late 20s, and as well as getting them like a full-time position, it's given them a trade as well. We've got them that HGV license, which, if they decide not in the future to stay with us, it's given them a massive opportunity as well. So I think it's really a really positive scheme that we've done, and it's been really helpful for us, because that's 8 positions that we've not had to fill externally. We managed to train our own drivers up.
How do you retain the new recruits that come in? Do you do anything particular with them to sort of maximise the chance of them staying?
One of the things that I think is really important with us is we actually have anyone new that comes to us, we've got a 2-day full induction. Sort of gone are the days where you would just have new starts coming in and you'd hand them the keys to a truck, or you would just here's your PPE, on you go. We sort of try and maximise their potential, if you like, give them a full induction package with the council. any drivers that come in, they get a 5-day driver's induction on top of that. And like I said, we've just got the new training coordinator. So the person who's currently in that role, she manages all the new starts and offer as much training and everything that we can, so that we've got a skilled workforce. And I think kind of what we talked about earlier, the more that you do for your employees and show them that you're actually looking out for them and you're looking after them, then you've got much more chance of retaining them because they know that you're a good employer. I think if you just take someone on and just like on you go, let them sort of like go on with their job, they don't necessarily feel as if they're, they care about them or do anything for them. We get them in roughly once a month. We try and do a different toolbox talk as well, just to keep everyone's skills up. We've just developed, like corporately, everyone does e-learning within the council, and there's like 8 or 9 kind of mandatory e-learning courses, and it's really easy if you sit at a desk and you've got your computer. For the frontline staff, you can't necessarily do that. So we've now developed all the e-learning courses into manual courses, so that our officers and supervisors can train all the frontline staff as well. So nobody's missing out on any of the kind of essential training within the council.
I think I can see just in the 20 years that I've been sort of in this industry, it's moved from being a situation where the crew would come in, get their keys, go off and empty bins for a few hours, and then come back and say, I'm done, and go home. There's now much more interaction between the supervisors and the management structure to say, we need you to do this, we're rolling out new services, we need to gather this data, they've got in-cab systems, they've got tracking on the vehicles. It's not two separate things now. So having that that value built right at the beginning, so when the new recruits come in and you're able to say to them, you're important, this is what we need you to do, this is what you can expect from us, it actually makes it one team rather than just a labour force that you throw keys at.
Feeling valued and important is, I think that's what anyone would like out of their job, isn't it? To feel valued.
We rolled out our in-cab solution during the height of COVID, and we still managed to do it. And since then, we've spoken to other authorities where they're perhaps struggling a little bit more to get the crew buy-in, if you like. But I think, as Tim has just said, if you've got that connection with your team, and you'll be able to, get them to buy into things, because if you're trying something new and there's no connection there, then they'll just say, oh no, we're not doing that. Whereas if you've already got that good connection with the team, then when you try something new, they're coming along on the journey with you. So it's much easier to get them involved with new things. So I think we've got that kind of good rapport as well. But also, like the position I'm in, I'm the service manager, but I've done every role on the way up. And because you've also got supervisors and you've got officers who've all done the job as well, it's much easier for them to speak to the staff and discuss things with them, because they actually they know the job inside out themselves. They've done the job. So it's not as if somebody's just coming in, taking on a management role and giving out instructions but actually don't know anything about it. So because they've got that kind of natural rapport and they know everyone, they know the job, I think it works a lot better for that. It works a lot better for me anyway.
So I mean, as alongside the serious stuff of all the work you've done in Fife, I know you do some extracurricular stuff. You're doing a kilt walk, or you're doing 3 kilt walks this year. Is that right?
Absolutely, yeah. The last 2 years I've taken part in the Aberdeen Kilt Walk, raising money for charity. So this year I'm doing it again, raising money for Andy's Man Club. But as well as because I'm kind of celebrating a big birthday this year, decided I'm going to do extra, so I'm doing the Dundee Kilt Walk and the Edinburgh Kilt Walk as well.
Okay.
But all for the same charity, all for Andy's Man Club.
And what are you doing, Tim?
Well, I'm doing this virtual cycling thing. Well, all of Bartek is doing this virtual cycling thing. So some people are doing it in teams. Some of the, I was going to say brave, but I think it's just they didn't do the maths before they started. Virtual cycling from John O'Groats to Land's End, but we are calling it every single Bartek customer on the way.
Okay.
So it would have been about 800 miles if you do it as the traditional route, but actually, when we first did it, we worked it out at 3,000 miles, but then we put it through our excellent optimization software, which made it 2,700.
Wow.
So that's a plug for our software. We saved ourselves. Yeah, our team spent a few hours just putting it all in, and saved us 300 miles, which was a great win.
How far have you got so far?
Well, I set off really well because I started on New Year's Day. I was out in the rain, did my first miles then. but since then I've struggled a bit because I've moved house. So I did. I think I went to about 180 miles, which felt pretty good for January, but it stalled a bit, so I need to get back on the bike.
That's still impressive.
Yeah, some of the young fools in Bartek are up to like hundreds of miles and way off down the road.
And how long have you got to do it?
Well, until it's finished, but I want it done this year. So
Okay.
yeah, I want to be victorious, ideally by RWM, but I think that's going to be a bit of a stretch. But
And you're doing this for Andy's Man Club as well?
doing this for Andy's Man Club, yeah. Again, donation link in the comments below. Also, we've got our Bartek user group on March 26th, which Sandy has graciously agreed to be our keynote speaker at. So we will be spreading the word to probably 100 odd councils in Birmingham on that day, and we've got some goodie bags with the things and the posters and stuff, which we'll be handing out on the day as well. So getting that message out. It is just about, everywhere you go, you see Andy's Man Club, or you see, the mental health message, just to normalise that it's okay to talk about. So, you'll see me sweating on social media. You'll see Sandy in his kilt. God help us all.
Do you have to be in a kilt? Is that why it's called the kilt? Where you actually have to wear a kilt?
Yeah.
I'm not going to ask the obvious question.
No. You always wear something underneath. For chafing.
Now you're just showing off.
This is good to know. Amazing. So shall we go and see the vehicles?
Let's go and have a look at the trucks.
Perfect.
Cue the music.